I'm in the Gold League, bitch. Yeah, you heard me. Back to back to back promotions. No relegations. I'm the Dorking Wanderers of Duolingo. Promotions, no relegations. Did I stutter? Did I stammer? No, of course not. I'm smashing the opposition like I'm holding a motherfucking hammer, bitch.
Right, Duolingo. You weren't kidding about the relegations. To be fair, you got like what, a 14-day streak I saw.
Yeah, I this is what yeah. I figured I'm gonna enjoy Duolingo and make sure I have a streak of some sort, you know?
Yeah, I've had it a bit rocky recently, so I've basically just been doing. I've just been keeping the streak alive, but that's literally it for the past few days.
Yeah, like I really want to be good at French, of course. That's the goal. That's the aim. But I also am enjoying having like a constant in my life. So I'm trying to make that a very constant thing. But yeah, I can feel why like it can be a struggle. I think I've like someone who either I know or I'm friends. I don't know if I'm friends with them on Duolingo or not, but they have like a 300-day streak. I'm like, nah.
Bruh.
Yeah, I was like, okay, cool. Like, if I can have a streak like that means I'm consistently committing to a behavior for like a good long time, which is a very big plus for me because I'm very inconsistent. But yeah, you know, we're here. 14 days.
Intro.
Welcome to Silly Whale. This is a mental podcast. We are two people who talk about our mental health, and we would like to make you aware that while this show is for everyone, it might not be you. We do discuss things in the realm of mental health, the mental and things like that. So if you want to disappear and watch another podcast, I can happily recommend to you, if you like football, the Football Ramble. If you don't like football, I can't say JRVP for like the 15th week in a row. I don't know if I have any. What other podcasts like do I actually enjoy? The rest is politics. Go on then. You know, with Rory Campbell and Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell. Anyway, Joe, how's your week?
Oh, it's a weird time. Like you know those moments where things are going fine, but then someone gets you at the wrong moment, and you're like, okay, ask me tomorrow, and I'll be cool. like right now, you've chosen the exact moment to like really like dig into something, and it's like I can't be asked. But no, it's not that bad. I've just had like today and yesterday was just like quite rough for me because of work. But to be honest, I'm kind of happy because I mean, this always happens in jobs like in a shop or whatever. It's quite common, or it feels like it's common, that whenever you take days off or something like that, suddenly, you know, so in my week, I normally have I work 4 days. It's like, okay, well, I have Saturday and Sunday off, which are like the biggest portions of my shifts, right? I work for 17 and a half hours and 2 days there, and I've gotten rid of that. And then they're like, oh, okay, can you work an extra 3 hours on Friday? Can you work an extra 2 hours on Saturday? And things like on Thursday. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. And it feels like I haven't quite taken those days off in a way, as a result. But to be honest, like, you know, it's extra money, like, because I'm still getting paid for the holiday. And of course, you know, it's at the right time, like taking the day off right before I go, like the moment before I go on holiday to Tunisia and everything. I can't fucking wait. Like I've not like had it in my mind for as long as it's been a thing that I know is going to exist. But in the last like week, especially, it you know, just as you're approaching it, it just gets way more exciting, and the idea of it. And like I went around to Kessis's 2 nights ago on Wednesday. It's the 26th of April, by the way, for anyone who's wondering. On Wednesday, I went round and we like looked at the hotel and stuff like that, and we just kind of like talking about what we might do and stuff, and just it, you know, that atmosphere of like anticipation is nice. It's been really good in that sense. Having said that, this week probably wouldn't have been anywhere near as good if it wasn't for the fact that I had like a kind of a surprise guest come round to Worcester. So Ooh, this is gonna sound. This isn't really that complicated to me, but obviously to other people it might sound more complicated. My mum's friend, who's my aunt, in all respects of what that means, really beyond obviously like blood by blood or whatever. Um,
What the
her
fuck did you say?
my my aunt, Molly, my auntie.
Okay.
Um, I'm just going to talk about it in the form of like how I see the relationships, and then just recognize that that's not exactly it, but just explain it away. Um, her She has recently had two granddaughters. One of them she's not related to, but again, I'm actually going to simplify it rather than explain any of it because it makes it more complicated. I like the idea of just people having like this weird notion of what my family is like, and I'm going to use these relationships even though they don't make sense if you actually follow it, but whatever. So my aunties had two granddaughters recently. Well, I say recently. Last year they were born. They were born January 10th and 11th. Um, uh, Two different mums, having kids, and so they're basically twins because they were born within like 24 hours of each other. It's crazy. Complete accident, by the way. There was also no like they didn't synchronize when they were going to try and get pregnant or anything like that. That was also by accident. Um, so it's an insane level of coincidence. And she happens to be my auntie happened to be around uh, near-ish Worcester, and was like, "Oh, I've got little baby with me. Do you, like maybe I can come by and see you on Tuesday?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to see them because I haven't really seen those two in like this is only one of them that I'm seeing, but I haven't seen either of them really in I don't know, like I mean, not since I moved here, and I mean, you're looking at like and so it's probably like 7-8 months, which when they're only when they're only like 15 months old or 14 months old, or 15 or 16, what would it be? 1, 2, 3, yeah, like 15 months old. Um, it's that's a lot of time that I haven't seen them, and I haven't seen them like develop and grow or anything like that. So I was like, yeah, I really want to see them. And they came by, and it wasn't very long. Like they arrived around 11, and they left around 2:30. It wasn't very long, but we went out to dinner and like to lunch and stuff like that, and it was wonderful. Like I've always really liked children and babies and things like that because I grew up looking after all of my mum's friends' children. Like every time they came round on a Friday night, which was almost weekly. Like I think probably in a month it was like 3 times a week, 3 times a month on average, something like that. Maybe two because it's hazy the memory of that. But I've known so I've known like I've known people who were not related to me, but I looked after them so much when they were born, and they're now. I mean, Fred I think is 18 now, so I've literally known. So he's a brother to me. Like I've known him for as in the way that in
Yeah.
the way that my actual brother is, and it's like okay, and so I've developed a sort of like a bit of a strategy and way of like being with children and stuff like that, and I find them so adorable, and I think that they're really interesting in terms of like understanding like kind of people and like as both an animal and also as like a developing personality, like in seeing them. I was very interested in child development as a result growing up, and it was just wonderful to see both of them because I haven't actually had anyone come from London or anywhere else actually to see me here up to
Yeah,
this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Like
Because
my
I
mum and
haven't
dad
had the
have.
chance to either.
Yeah, and to be fair, like my schedule is shit, so that's a huge reason why. Like, for my mum and dad, it's very, very difficult for them to come see me in that way. It's too difficult to like. It totally could have been planned and done, but there were points where I wasn't even living, in a house that I rented. Like I was paying money, but I was, living at my friends, while they kept me around for about a month and a bit, and then me learning to like settle down here and things like that and getting used to it. It never made sense, and I was going through a lot of shit, so I wasn't like actively calling them out or anything like that to come by. But I did. I guess you could say I did think probably at some point they would come visit me around like by this point maybe, or but maybe not. Like it's kind of weird. Everyone has their own sort of sense of how much time they need with their family and things like that. Like when I rarely call my mum we call probably about maybe like once every 3 weeks to a month, and that's quite normal. And
Yeah.
we're both happy with that. Like that's a perfect arrangement for us, and that's okay. So, doing that basically meant that, yeah, she knew what was going on with me. I knew what was going on with her and at home. And it's like, okay, cool. We, have this interaction and stuff, and it's fine. So, but having like someone actually come back from home and see Worcester, because most of my family have never been to Worcester. If in fact, I'd probably say actually all of my family haven't been to Worcester. I don't think any of them have. So, just showing them around the place and, some the more nice bits where possible and giving, like I didn't take them really anywhere outside the city center. Like I didn't go beyond that, to be honest. And the city center is like not huge, but it's got enough like of a size to it. And there's the beautiful river and all of the swans there, and it's quite historical because Worcester's a very old city and quite a historical city in terms of its like in terms of the history in England. It's had like lots of interesting like moments and stuff. And it was just wonderful. It was just a nice time, and it really kind of, I think it cheered me up in a way that I wasn't quite expecting. And it was just a lovely surprise as well. Like there was no like anticipation leading up to it. It was just like, oh, like, shall I? And then I was like, yeah, let's do it. So it was a really nice surprise. And I like surprises like that when you do have the time to know that it's going to happen, but it's like, oh, you're available. Cool. It was just really wonderful. The I'm still on the I'm still generally, of course, on the YouTube sobriety program.
Yeah, how's it going?
I ended up watching, I think, about 5 hours in a row on sometime last week. It might have been either Sunday or Saturday. I can't remember what day it was. Probably Sunday, if I had to guess. Or yeah, it was not, probably after a week had already passed, and it was like around that time. And then since then I haven't done. Like there are moments where I will watch like a YouTube video that is what is technically a YouTube video, but like I know that it exists on another website that I'm going to directly for that, and then I'm leaving. I'm not like watching a ton of stuff. Because that's essentially, that's me just engaging with media, and that's not a bad thing. I don't have a problem with that. And I don't, and if that's the way that I interact with that kind of media from now on, then I would be very happy. But yeah, a little bit of a little bit of a downturn in that, like, my streak had to end and I had to start it up again. So I'm probably about a week again, but 2 weeks in the long haul of it, which has been really nice. Like that has been a kind of interesting boost for me because it now means that I haven't had, like, even the day that I watched the 5 or 6 hours or whatever, that was like after I'd finished work. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't I that's why I think it was Saturday night. I wasn't I didn't like wake up and then just watch YouTube for 5 to 6 hours and then ruin most of my day. Like I did it after work, after everything, and I just kind of like went, and for whatever reason I decided to kind of go with it. So like I the difference between past experiences of this and now is wild. Like I can say that for sure, because there's no point where I could say that like a 2 week version of this, even in the way it's happened, like a 2 week version of this has occurred. And if I started going back on it, then it was basically I kind of broke, or it was like a very clear, like I broke on one day, not completely, but I did, and then I broke again the next day, but again not completely, and then it kind of like, and then probably the day after I would like go back completely. So this is the first time I've sort of recovered from that experience and not gone back to it. And this is with me like specifically not doing some of the things that I want to be doing, like as the sort of replacement, if you know what I mean, like as in
Yeah.
going to rock climbing and stuff like that, and looking into all of those things. And I have done a little bit more in terms of job searching as a result. And I am kind of in having a better, I think my energy level is slightly better. It's hard to tell. Like it really is, because, I'm still procrastinating by doing other things, but that are
Yeah,
not necessarily helpful or useful, and it is not YouTube, right? Like but it's definitely within a vein of it. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be doing this, but because it's not YouTube, I find it easier to pull myself out in those moments.
yeah.
Um,
Like I would say, listen back to all the like you. I know you listen to episodes as they go out because I don't. So I rely on you for all that stuff. But maybe like it's worth listening back to like the last time you went through like a serious binge and a re-recorded episode because you might just be able to hear the tone of your voice be slightly different, or like feel, or maybe you just talk about how you're feeling. Maybe there'll be like a different there. I remember I was listening to another podcast and then CD Wales automatically came on. It was like episode 3 or whatever. And I sounded like super, either super depressed or super happy. Can't remember which one. But it made me really reflective of like how there's like a little mental health journey, and you can probably put it into data, shit like that. Like when
yeah.
when we're at like a good level, what stage of the month, for example, we're at a good level.
Yeah, I'm God, this is actually kind of an interesting topic I wanted to get into at some point. But I'll give like a very minor version of it. But I've definitely had a lot more kind of recognition for how important memory is. In many different ways. Like the benefit of memory to kind of produce a better life and better and better things in general. It's very hard to describe because I'm trying to give a short version of it. But in the context of this, for example, having the understanding of like how you felt, or like remembering some of the tools that you can use to kind of bring yourself back from like spiraling, or remembering the ways in which, or remembering feeling good, and remembering that like oh, I won't feel this bad later on, like these little axioms, or these little points of reference that you have, and not being completely awash with just stimuli or emotion, and poor self-talk, which is not memory. Like like it is to an extent. Like I can argue, to be fair, that bad self-talk is probably memory in a nutshell, right? It's memory, but it's memory of something that you don't want, and it's a memory of like a of like a kind of concept you have drilled into yourself that you keep pulling back up, and it keeps
Yeah, yeah,
causing
yeah.
issues for you. So I think there's a really interesting aspect within, and actually within that, I can very much understand why people like take drugs and shit like that to kind of get out of this, alcohol included, obviously, because of the idea that you kind of fuck yourself up to the point where you don't really remember anything before. Not to say that you don't remember things from before, but you absolutely do. But the idea of like distracting your brain away from past events, trauma, triggering like events in your life, and so on, that is really kind of fascinating, and I guess the darker side of it, of memory. But I think the point is that memory is so key in many ways, and for me, like some of the growth I've been making more recently, I feel has had me remembering things a lot more that I otherwise would have forgotten. Um, so yeah, I won't go into it too much because again, I think we could either talk about this a lot more later on in this episode, but I almost want to talk about this in a greater depth, knowing that that's what the topic is. Maybe not necessarily like an hour long or whatever, but just like
Yeah, yeah.
maybe like a presents or something.
Yeah, we'll type it in in our
I will
server, and
do.
then
I will do. I'll remember
um
to do that in a bit.
yeah. No, but
um,
I like it though. I've
yeah,
been like I don't really again I don't listen to these back, but I do, because we were talking about this the other day about like the idea of whenever we write anything, we don't enjoy reading it back because it was from a time in which we were like not doing great. Um, or we just had like a certain viewpoint, and I was like, a lot of like the poetry I've written, which I want to release, is of a time in which I wasn't in a good place. Like some of them now, like some of the newer tracks of the album were like of a time frame that wasn't long ago, but mentally it was long ago. So now
right.
like there's that connection issue where I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's my work anymore because
Yes. Holy
the
shit.
person's gone up and down.
I feel like that's such a big thing. I don't know whether this is something that people can that I wonder if this is something that is quite universal, but we are very changeable, or we have the capacity to be very changeable. I know a lot of people are quite rooted and stubborn in the way that they are. But and you have to kind of like deconstruct people in order to like get them to a better place. But it is fascinating. Like, so the conversation we were having was about poetry because we wanted to kind of do more poetry stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I but I'd been mulling over poetry for a long time because a lot of the ideas I had in the past or what I used to write about, like, very long time ago. I mean, we're talking like a decade essentially for me when I was like making poems for myself and then like sending them to friends on occasion. Was Some of them were kind of good. Like some of them were within a vein that I like because because to me it's meant, like, for example, I made a poem with this is so nerdy, but I do love it. If you get the reference and you get like what it's going for, then it makes sense. It sounds I made a poem which sounded like specifically kind of slightly pathetic and whiny in terms of a person who is incapable, who's like like very forlorn and like, oh, woe is me, which very much had some of my emotional and experiential like feeling in it. But I specifically did it in what I would call like the voice of Victor Frankenstein, because if you've read Frankenstein, the book is amazing. It is such a good book. It's such a good story. Uh, Mary Shelley is an amazing writer. And it's probably not like what some people might not have an understanding of what really the book is like, because it's probably quite different to the way it's been, like transformed over time and bastardized in many ways. But the main character, in my opinion, is a fucking piece of shit. But I think that Mary Shelley writes on purpose to make him a piece of shit because she doesn't like the main character, but the main character is the one telling the story. For a large portion of it, I should say. It's hard to explain, but he's telling the story for most of the book. There's very little of it that isn't him talking. Technically, the writer of the book isn't even Victor Frankenstein. Hilariously, within the lore of the within the lore in the story. Anyway, but he is constantly in this like woe is me kind of thing. So I made a poem about that to not go off too much on a tangent, and I really liked it conceptually because I was trying to take the piss out of that while still using like emotional stuff and feelings that I had in terms of like feeling awful and so on, and feeling, it's kind of like letting out your emo side, I guess, in a little way, like while laughing it and then going, haha, look how dumb like it is that this person's just constantly whining. Not to say that that's all emo stuff or whatever, but I'm not a huge fan of I guess like kind of decrying to the point of decrying to decry alone, and kind of that's it. It feels a bit shallow to me. Anyway, I'm gonna get a lot of people angry at me for saying that. Either way. But I made poems and stuff, but then and when I was thinking, okay, what kind of ideas I have, a lot of them harken back in some ways to that, because that was my writing style. That was the place that my writing came from creatively. And then now, when I imagine writing a poem, I want it to have much more than that. And I also don't want it to just be decrying. I don't want it to just be a complaint, like about things. I want it to, if it's a complaint, I want it to be much more multifaceted, nuanced. I want it to maybe make more of a point, right? Like I want it to be better written. And what's and so I kind of, for a long period of time, I've been thinking like I should write poetry and stuff, but then I kind of hate every idea I come up with, especially the way in which I do it, right? So there's this interesting thing, and I think I don't know if that's quite the same as yours, because I mean maybe there's definitely overlap, I imagine, but I with you it's I can't tell, because I know some of the context for your poems, and some of them I think are very specific, or specific to an event or something like that, rather than just an overall feeling. Or like someone said something and you wanted to write a poem about that thing. I get like, and I think that's probably better than the stuff I was writing for sure. I think there's more to meat on that. But there is this odd feeling of the person who used to, like the memories you have of the person, and you can kind of remember it like you were feeling it now, of like oh, I used to feel this way about this thing, or I used to really react poorly to this, and things like that. And it really does feel year by year like as a different person every iteration. Like the thing that has struck me so hard about my experience of growing up is that, like, my experiences from like 18 years old onwards, and particularly 21 years old, because that was a big point in my life. The feelings I have now, it's interesting because there's so many steps leading up to it, but I don't ever feel like I've stopped. Like, and there's no point where like in the last 7 or 6 years where I feel like I've stopped growing. But I can tell you that every single time I grow, I feel like I'm growing in a larger way than I did before. Because because sometimes it doesn't take a lot to change in a considerable manner, right? So like big change can come from very small actual change or actual thought differences, just because because like when you're at the bottom, any positive feels very extreme and big. Yet over those years, I've kind of understood that the changes are bigger than the impact feels, if that makes sense. So I'm like growing more as a person, but I'm not noticing that difference as much, which is which is interesting. But like that, I really do feel like like not just a different person. It feels like I'm listening to an alien version, like alien trying to use my life history to make a like a bot that's speaking or like thinking, in a way, and like, and it's kind of crazy to think about. And everyone goes through this. Everyone has moments in their life where they either look back and they go, ooh, or they're like, or to borrow like modern like words and stuff, like, oh, that was real cringe. Like that was
Yeah.
bad. And remembering like the parts of our life where we're like, yep, I'm like, honestly, I want to take that to my grave, because even though I am a much better person now, I still don't want anyone to know that that was the thing about me. And I think if you don't have that, I worry slightly, because if you haven't had that point in your life, or you don't consistently feel that like as you grow older, then either you haven't changed that much, or I guess it's you're not going to necessarily change that much going forward, because you don't know what you're moving away from. Like, you don't know the direction you're going. To be clear, though, I should say that's probably from the perspective of mine, which is like constantly trying to improve, where I'm like actively wanting to make change and be different and so on. So in those cases, it's like, okay, well, clearly I think of it almost teleologically. I'm thinking there's like a direction I'm going, even though that's not quite how that works. But I know I'm going away from a point at very least, you know. But either way, I think it is fascinating. And to go back to when I was talking about memory and why I even brought it up, to be clear, the having these episodes is we talked about this at the beginning, that this is almost a time capsule for us. And because I don't listen to all of them all, I don't listen to them all regularly. Like, I'm not listening to every single one, but there might be one I'll go back to, and I'll listen to it again, maybe a month after it came out, and I'm like, oh, interesting that this is where my head was at. And it really does give you perspective on where you are, because you just know that the information that Joe had in that moment is not was nothing. He had no information of where I am right now. But where I am right now, looking at Joe, I have all of the information. So you're looking at a more ignorant version of yourself, which is fascinating, because it makes you realize the
Yeah.
knowledge you've gained, and it makes you realize the stuff that you've understood. And that goes both ways, obviously. Like, there are moments where really tragic events happen, or really life altering things that aren't necessarily good. Like, very, like if I found out suddenly that I had another kid in Europe. No, I'm kidding. But if I found out like if I found out like that I was going to be a dad, and there was that kid was definitely going to be born and stuff, and what was going to happen as a result, my life would be forever altered as a result of that. Not like in the like when I'm 70, it's going to be as altered as it is now. But right now, that would have huge impact on what my life is going to be going forward in the next 2 years. Like, what I'm, right now, even though I'm not where I want to be, there is a blessed freedom to the fact that I don't have like commitments that I have to tie myself to too hard. So I can take kind of as long as I want to get to the position I want to be in, and I can take as long as I want um to like figure shit out whereas that wouldn't be the same. And I'm not, and I know I like I said, I've looked after kids and stuff, so I'm quite and I'm aware of like what becoming like a parent does to people. In the way that like for certain people, like it changes you as a person considerably. I'm aware of that. Because there's just this sudden like incentive urge to do something else. This isn't true of all parents, by the way. It's just to keep in mind, lots of parents do kind of not just struggle, but really break down as a result of these things. So we should remember that. But to me, it's like, okay, I know that I don't have to worry about those things, and I can get round to that shit if I want to later in life, and that's all good. And I'm kind of happier for that. Like there's way too many things I could go on this conversation about, but that very much is the kind of summation of where I am in a way, where it's like, the world is not my oyster because I don't eat oysters, but it's very much my, it very much is my, a jungle that I'm exploring and really getting to understand, and I'm learning how to survive my own way. And I don't have this baby or something like that to like really to force me into a certain way of being right now. So it's not better or worse than being a parent or anything like that. Like I think all of them are valid and perfectly fine. And I think also just some people like one more than the other, and that's perfectly normal. Allow people to not want to have kids if they don't want to. Allow people to have kids if they want to, and don't tell people they can't or whatever. But it is just fundamentally fascinating to me, this whole experience and this recognition of where I am, and actually how kind of content I am with that. I'm not where I want to be, but I definitely feel that I'm in the right place, which is an odd sentiment, but I feel I'm in the right place even though I don't like where I am, because I feel the potential of me is very much available, but just the position I'm in at the moment, is not the best one. And there's more to go, and there's more to explore, and everything like that.
Yeah, like I feel like we're gonna like this podcast is like a good time capsule thing. So I think who knows how long we're gonna do the show for, and like the success the show could have is limitless. But it's like if we look back on the show in 2 years' time, it's not just us looking back on it, like it's strangers who we don't know, and like we have a subreddit or whatever, and people are like, hey, in episode like 10. They spoke about like, well, no, what episode? In like episode 12, they spoke about like Lucy Letby. That was weird. And I'm like, fuck, yeah, we did that. We did that. And like, oh, like, you know, like, or like the first episode where like the audio quality was so weird, and like it's a time capsule for other people as well, and how they interpret our lives at that point as well, or our lives now. If you're someone who is listening to this 2 years later, it does feel like there's a lot to look back on already. And then this show kind of creates it's kind of, if you look at it in a comic book way, it's kind of created its own universe in a way. Like, this is a separate thing where we can like, look back and replay chapters of our lives and like replay the missions and see how it goes, see what the cutscenes are, whatever. But yeah. It'll be interesting. Like, or looking back on this episode, right as we do like the 214th episode or whatever. Like, yeah, it'd be a nice little time capsule.
I mean, you could say that about art in general, right? And I'm not quite saying that this is art, but I definitely think this is a creative outlet for us in a sense.
Yeah, I think it's art.
It's an outlet, right? But it's it's anything which has the potential to continue to exist is fascinating, because we're not leaving a legacy, so to speak, but we're leaving something, and that something is kind of enough. That feels good, and the fact that we can interact with it later on, hopefully it doesn't just delete from existence for some reason, which, to be honest, I mean, eventually that might happen. But but the idea that like, we think, if I'm 27 now, I'm 54, and I could in theory listen back to some of this and be like, and feel an odd, and knowing that I'll have an opinion and a perspective that is an opinion and perspective I couldn't possibly fathom, right? Because I would have lived for so much. I would have lived an entire current lifetime as long again is, unless I die beforehand, who knows? But like just the idea of that is insane. I want to really quickly, because I know I'm taking up so much time, and I want to ask you about your week. The one thing that this week also brought back to me, and I guess this is just like because I was on Spotify more and kind of listening to music and stuff, and I was like itching for something, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then suddenly, I remembered a song that I haven't listened to in ages, which was "Lazarus Man" by Terry. I don't actually know how you say his surname. I'm going to go the W.B. Du Bois way of saying it and not do it in a French way, just because he's American and I don't, and I'm going to just go with that rather than going like, Terry Callier. I'm going to say Terry Callier, right? Or I'm not going to say Callier either. I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's Callier. I was looking up some stuff about him today before we started because I realized like he's very unique in terms of what I've heard of music. And he's also kind of I have a very strong memory of learning about him because I learned about him while I was like with my dad while I was driving, and he was he was just watching over as I was learning and stuff. And we put it on, and or maybe actually he was driving me. I can't remember, but either way, it was just us two in the car, and it was something, and it was a CD I've never heard before. That was just in the car, and he loved it. The album in particular was Timepiece, I think it's called. Yeah, it would be Timepiece, and it has the two tracks that I really got from that was Lazarus Man and Brotherly Love. Those two were the only songs I went on Spotify, got them, and then I only listened to those songs. I didn't listen to anything else he had done because I'm terrible like that. I didn't actually like look into anything more about him. I didn't learn about who he was or anything like that. But I sent you once like one of these songs, and you said you had never heard of him before. Black African American man, born in 1945. Which is crazy. He died in 2012. I learned, so he died 12 years ago. Now I don't know exactly what time of the year. A jazz, soul, funk, folk singer songwriter and musician. All of those are fucking great. I love every one of those. Like putting those together in particular is amazing. Like one of my favorite singers is by far in existence is Nina Simone, but his voice is amazing. His like ability to bring soul on every like word he says is incredible, but he doesn't feel like Nina Simone levels of like kind of loudness, if that makes sense. He's got that like kind of, and obviously Nina Simone I would say is almost more the queen of soul in that sense. Obviously love Marvin Gaye and other people like that. I love all of them, but the thing about Terry Callier, which I find so interesting, is like for his music, any track you listen to, any song you listen to, the music evolves along the way, which is something I realize is quite uncommon, I think, to a certain extent in lots of songs I listen to. Lots of songs kind of, repeat strings, verse chorus kind of thing, with like maybe some small changes here and there. His like feels like, his like the music itself is changing like slowly over the course of the song. And it changes in this way while still in keeping a lot of the music, like the singing is quite similar in certain ways, and then like will drastically change and then come back down and things like that. And it's just, I don't know how to explain it. I listen to more of his songs now, and I've just added way more songs to my liked songs on Spotify. Really, really recommend him. And I just feel like not many people know about him. He gets like although having said that, I did look, and he gets 254,000 monthly listeners. This is an old, this is old school, right? I don't know if that's high or low. I don't know what that's considered roughly.
I think he I think he may have been big in the UK actually. I think like I just googled him, and I actually do remember him byproduct of the UK. Like I think his songs were remixed a lot. I think his songs were remixed a lot.
Yes, he did. I heard some of those as well. Yeah.
So yeah, like which is how I know him. died of cancer. He's only 67. Like,
Yeah, so it's such a shame, man.
but
That's the age my
interesting
dad
career.
is this year. Like,
Yeah. But yeah, like interesting. Like the like or music in general. Fucking hell. Like I on the way home from Muay Thai. I'll go into my week. We're here. Like on the way home from Muay Thai, I was like just listening to music. I couldn't bother to put on a podcast onto this so much song. And I've been getting back into Pokemon recently, like watching it, playing it, all that stuff. I'm like, want to get my EV tattoo sorted out. And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And like, I'm so back in love with it. And I remember one of my favorite things to do was to listen to the theme song of the anime. So of course, the original, Pokemon Johto, and the Hoenn stuff, then the Sinnoh, all the way through. And like the original theme is always the best theme. But like, I used to always think that Battle Frontiers theme was like second best, or Advanced Battle's really good.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's the Battle Frontier. I remember that one. Yeah.
Pokemon, yeah. Like,
yeah. I remember now.
And the fact that I know the lyrics off by heart. The only ones I don't really know off by heart is the like black and white intro. The black and white intros, like then onwards. But I recently listened to, I think it's I don't know which series it is, but The Journey Starts Today is a song. And it's from a band called Walk Off the Earth. And they're like a very pop-based band. I think that might be their best song, in my honest opinion. I don't know whether there's like a big, like, I think that I know they're fairly big because they perform at Red Rocks and all that stuff, but like, God, that's a good intro. And I was like, I need to connect with this again. So I watched a video, and I'll recommend this for you guys, not you, because this is YouTube, but I really want to catch up with Pokemon. And a YouTuber named Jordan Fringe made a Pokemon, like, retrospective look at Ash's whole, like, life and all that stuff. It's 12 hours in total. It goes from his whole character retrospective, from season 1, every single season, and all the movies in between, all the way up until the very last episode. I'm like, oh, this will save me, like, about 4 days worth of watching, because I got a good 6 seasons behind. And he covers it so well. And, like, it's just like, I kind of wish it was 12 hours longer. And it got me emotional. Like, there was the whole, like, I rewatched his, like, final battle with Leon, and, like, I was just looking, I'm such a fucking nerd. Like, Ash gets gets ready to fuck people up in it, and the original Pokemon theme song comes on. I'm like, oh, he's gonna become a Pokemon master. This is the fucking day. Oh my god! Like, I was like super hyped, and I remembered like the moments of Pokemon where I connected so heavily. Like, I was brought to tears even when I was a kid, and even still now. Like, it's like how they've written the show so well. I'm sure there'll be some fucking cunt who'll be like, well, that's not the best written anime. The best written anime is like this one, and from like 2003. And no, shut the fuck up. No one cares what you have to say, okay? Get the fuck out of it, okay? No. Like, it is written like so well without as much effort as they could put in. Like, I feel like if they wanted to, they could like put in like so much more like hidden meaning and hidden depth behind it. But they don't. And I think that's what makes it beautiful, because you have to infer everything. And everyone thinks that they have the answers to the questions. For example, do you remember like Butterfree in first season of Pokemon?
Where, like, I do.
Thought, yeah.
Was that Misty's Pokemon?
No, that was Ash's Butterfree.
Oh, Ash's was, okay, cool.
And like the whole thing where like he found the shiny Butterfree as his mate, and they all went away, and then everyone thought, oh, because butterflies die when they find their mate or whatever, Butterfree's dead. So everyone just figured Butterfree's dead. Cool. And everyone cries about it. It's so sad with Butterfree. Oh my god, Butterfree's dead because it's a butterfly. And, you know, that they die. And yeah, like how Pokemon deals with death is so like meaningful. But last episode, you see Butterfree. He's alive and well. Suck my dick. You know? like yes. Okay.
I'm not a real butterfly. I'm a Pokemon.
Yeah. Like, I'm a fucking Pokemon. But like even that, and then the new season's on. If you have BBC iPlayer, if you don't, just get it. Okay, just get it. If you're in the UK, BBC iPlayer, the new season of Pokemon with the new main character is there. So I was like, I'm gonna give it a go.
I didn't
I
know there was
gave
a
it
new character.
yeah, so they got rid of Ash. Ash has been sunsetted. Ash has been removed from the
Oh,
DLC.
okay, okay. Holy shit!
Yeah, so
Wow.
Ash won, and now he's like adventuring for the sake of adventuring. He's completed side quests now. So no, like, so they decided we're gonna get rid of Ash, and everyone was like, "How could they do this? This is gonna be Pokemon's not the same without Ash." I think honestly that transition from Ash to Liko, perfect. Brand new character, similar vibe to Ash, reminds me of me, ADHD dumbass kid, like absolutely dumb, oblivious to everything, like something like has zero emotional connection to anything, but somehow has emotional connection to everything. Like it's just we love it. Okay, this character's good. They've written like excellent characters around it. They've kept the Pikachu in it, and the Pikachu's the captain of the ship and has a stupid little hat. But it's great. Like it's great. The Charizard, like the other main character's black. You know, it's great. Like
Cool.
it's so good. It's just good. That's been the majority of my week in terms of like what I've seen and what I've done. I've been shit to everything else.
I mean, there's something wonderful about your like passions like that, though. Like, I think that is
Yeah.
a wonderful experience and
Oh
thing
yeah, yeah.
to engage with.
Like it's just yeah. I've had so many cool discussions like this week actually about like different media that I like and I don't like. I speak to Ryan and like I want to send him to The Hague for some music opinions, but also I did send him a song by Ryan Starr called Last Train Home, and I think it might be the worst song ever. But it's one of my favorite songs. It's terrible, absolutely terrible. But I can't really call him a war criminal for him thinking that Machine Gun Kelly Rap Dev was better than Killshot, because I belong like in the Super Hague, you know? Like he's sentenced to like war crimes. I'm sentenced to like, you know, multiple war crimes. Like it's bad. Like I assassinated a president or two. But between those conversations and being like, hey, this song's cool. Oh, this song's cool. And then discussing poetry with other people as well and being like, oh, I'll be like this poet. Oh, this poet's really cool. Like, or even like back to Ryan, like I'll be like, here's a song. And he goes, good band, but this song by them in the same album is even better. Just no one talks about it. I'm like, oh shit. Oh my god, it is. Ah! Like talking about art is the easiest way to make connections with people who you don't know or you know really well. Like you just because you can be really hyper and passionate about it, and if they have the same level or like even a little bit, they're on board. You know, they're on board.
Yeah, you have to. Although I will say, fundamentally, I think that so many internet conversations and forums are literally about people disagreeing and not connecting over art in certain ways because of just the amount of which they'll like beat each up over like how their opinions and stuff. The one thing I'll say, because I actually totally agree with you in like a vacuum sense, like in a vacuum. The but in order for you to actually make good use of that, because it's so good the kind of connections you can have. I mean, we've connected over bands and music, like, you know, in ways that not changed our relationship but added to our relationship when we didn't have that before, right? That wasn't why we knew each other or liked or loved each other and things like that. But then, you know, it's like, oh, we've got this extra thing that we both enjoy and we can both appreciate and we both understand about each other. Something I developed growing up. I sometimes talk in such a weird manner. Something that I realized at a point in my life, which I should have realized way. Speaking of like being a very different person, that I should have realized so much earlier on in my life, is that it is totally fine for you to disagree about what you enjoy, and there isn't a right or wrong about enjoying. Like, especially like, let's say you're talking about music. The idea that like I largely like most music. There's very little music I don't like or don't tend to like, right? But there is some music which is not my wheelhouse, but most music I can appreciate at the very least. But, you know, once upon a time, I think I would have just been very dismissive of it as good, because to me it's just not good. Like, you know, like it's not, I don't enjoy it, therefore it's not something to be enjoyed or enjoyable. And holy shit, does it make your life so much better to not have that kind of stance and opinion on things like that? Like, just in general about opinions, like when someone has a different opinion to you, especially about something that like is so innocuous, like a film they like, you know, a series they like, music they like, and all these sort of things which really don't make any fucking difference in the world for their existence. You know, um, it's so nice to be in a position with someone where you're like, I do not agree with you on this, but I have no problem with that, and that doesn't mean anything. I don't think any differently of you, or and it, this is just something that you like and I like other things. It's all good. There are some people who I imagine are going to listen to Terry Callier and they're like, oh, that's kind of like, oh, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's kind of boring, or it's not my like vibe or whatever. I don't care. I genuinely don't. Like, I just want, like, I'm just hoping some people listen to it and realize how good it is, and also enjoy it, and I'll like have spread his name, which I just so want to be known, like, because I've never ever heard of him outside of my dad. I mean, you had heard of him in a very niche way, but yes, I think he has had more like UK success. But yeah, like I love conversations like that. I think it's amazing, but you need to be in a position where you're like, I don't like whatever the answer is, I don't care, in a weird way. You have to be like, I want to know what the answer is, but I don't care what the answer is. Emotion, like, it doesn't affect me to know that someone likes something I like or not. There are things. One of my favorite series I've shared with other people. Some people really get it the same way I do. Some other people don't get it the same way I do. And back in the day, if that had happened, I would have been so bitter about it, and I would have had such a lower feeling about these people. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that, and you don't need to get upset by the fact that someone doesn't enjoy it as much. Like, stay convicted in why you enjoy something and why you think it's good. That's totally fine. But don't like shit on people for the stuff that you don't like, or the stuff that they don't like. It's just a bad way. It's just not a good way to be. It's not a way of connecting, and it will just make you bitter and angry, and and not connect. But I totally agree. It sounds amazing. Like, just the idea of talking about that stuff is great. Like,
yeah, like it's just that's really what it all is. Like I love connecting. Like, even talking about like certain songs, how and like I was listening to Tears Don't Fall earlier, and I think I've mentioned to a couple of people now. Like, my favorite part of the song is like towards the end, where it's like it's I don't even know what you call it. It's like a very short guitar solo bit into the chorus one more time. Like, there's a word for it. Like, it's the like pre-guitar before final chorus. I don't know what you call it, but like
yeah, it's just
I
like an
love the final.
intro
Yeah,
instrumental. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
It's
don't
like
know what it's called, but yeah.
like no. Your tears don't fall. It's like, great. I love it. It gets me going. And then there's also like Rainbow Kitten Surprise counting cards, where it takes a bit of a break, a pause, and then straight back into the chorus to finish. Like, I really love those things in song. Like, the last like mini verse or verse before the chorus, where they like maybe sing it with a bit more passion or different tone. I'm like, oh my goodness! Like, I think that's like a really common thing with a lot of the songs on my playlist, actually, where they have that moment where a crescendo build into a bigger, like, to the biggest like chorus at the end. But yeah, like, so connecting with things like that is great. And when people disagree, like when people say, "No, I hate this," or whatever, like, it's so easy to get drawn in and being like really upset, especially when it comes to like artists. Like, we mentioned it last week. I think that episode might be going up week. I don't know, but like we mentioned like Drake and all the whole the whole diss battles and all that stuff. Like, people
Oh
are
yes.
really
Oh
like
yeah.
camped out. Like, people are really camped out in their teams, and they're like fully like, oh, blah, blah. Like, I think it's just really funny and really cool that we got like the most successful rappers. Don't know if they'd be called the best rappers, like Cole, Kendrick, Drake commercially. All those guys are like beefing with one another. And then you have like fucking Chris Brown and Quavo out of nowhere. What the? Like, Chris Brown was like, I'm gonna rap again. And everyone's like, oh my goodness, Chris Brown can rap, and this is terrifying. He's gonna like beat Quavo like he beat Rihanna. And everyone's like, oh my god. And then Quavo came back,
Oh.
and Quavo like scorched him. And then random like things, but people are just so like dug in. So whatever like a rapper does, it's always going to be trash because they have to say it's trash. Whatever like their favorite rapper does, is always going to be great. It's like, oh come on, just enjoy it, have fun,
Yeah,
live.
I don't see the point of it. It sounds boring to me now. I think especially because I've seen it happen so often, where I'm like, this is boring. Like this whole charade is boring. Like, and it's not. It's not. I'm almost at the point where I don't really care about like diss battles in a larger sense. I'm like, yeah, like I get it. If someone called you out for some reason, it's if you come back with a really good song and you actually make a good song and it's really, and to kind of come back at them, cool. But that's kind of all that it is it's just a song. It's just another song, and
Yeah,
all the narrative around it is so, forget even words like toxic, it's just boring now. Like it's like I don't care, like I don't want to, I'm not interested whether you think that this artist is better than another person, or I don't care if like I think the comparison is lost on me now. Just like I said before, like I can compare, for example, the way Nina Simone sings to Terry Callier, and I can do the same with Marvin Gaye. But what's but I could, but it wouldn't change the fact that I love all of them for their own reasons, and I can have a favorite even amongst them. But who gives a shit what my favorite is? Does it make a difference? No. It's just a pure explanation of how the sound that enters my ear makes me feel pleasure in a way that I can decide one is like more pleasurable, or not even more pleasurable. The reason I like Nina Simone so much is just I find her extraordinary, like the way that she sings. I find I don't see other people that can do what she can, because it's not just like she's very good at singing. It's also like her singing is different. It's just different. You can't like any. Also, fucking listen to any Nina Simone cover. It's the worst fucking thing I've ever heard. No offense to people who like, very unlikely that they're fucking listening to this, but I'm swear down. I could. It's like listening to. It's especially because a lot of the time they're white. I don't know if you've noticed that with a lot of those
yeah, like
covers. Like,
the guy from Lucifer, Tom, can't remember, Tom something. He did
oh
it.
yeah, but he did it
Uh,
he did it in the show Lucifer. Yeah.
but it was also like recorded and released as a song.
Yeah, but as part of like
Like
the song tracks for the show. Yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah, like so, and like he was legitimately like going for it, and like
Yeah, I
the
didn't
idea,
mind his, to be
like,
honest. His is not
yeah,
the
like
worst I've
he can sing,
heard.
but
Yeah, he's all
like
right. He's fine.
it's difficult
It's
to
good.
do covers, and you don't want to like yearn to listen to the original. That's what I've noticed of covers.
Yeah.
Like a really good cover makes you sort of like wanna, I guess, want to have it as a separate song in a way. I feel like anyway. Like I don't want to be listening to a cover and think, but I just want the original.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, but sometimes it's going to get a little bit kind of artsy or whatever. But there are certain like songs that don't work unless some particular person sings it, and it's not even that the person is the best singer. It's just a case of the way that they do it, their style, and I like, again, to call like to Marvin Gaye, Nina Simone, for example. If Nina Simone sang a Marvin Gaye song, it wouldn't be the same song. Like, and to the extent of, it probably wouldn't be as good because they're not actually this, because the way that they sing is different, and so therefore like you're not going to have the same output, and that's totally fine. um there are certain songs, like when I'm like listening to um uh I'm Feeling Good or Cinnamon, or like those two in particular are like my favorites by Nina Simone. Like, trying to imagine anyone else doing those songs, it's not the same. And I've heard people do it like almost, like tone for tone, like speak like, or like with the same cadence or whatever. Sometimes the cadence changes in certain bits of it, but like for the most part they're trying to keep it like the same. They're not trying to make it a new song. They are doing a cover, like they are just doing a different voice doing it, singing it. Like listening to it, it's like, yeah, you can't do that the way she did it. Like it just doesn't sound the same, and everything about the way she did it doesn't resonate in the way you sing. And so everything that when she sings like when she talks about little bits and pieces. Aretha Franklin is another good example. It's amazing. And Summertime by Aretha Franklin, and I forget who else, which is from a play, I believe. That song about slaves, which is why my brother, I think, kind of heard it for the first time. Uh, God, it's the guy who does Trees Are Green. What's his name again?
Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong and Aretha Franklin, Summertime. Like it's just, they bring something so different that the song feels like it was meant for them. You know what I mean? Rather than it being that rather than it being like that a person made a song, the song was like drawn into existence by their ability to sing a certain way.
Yeah, like a lot of the Motown songs were like effectively shipped out to different Motown artists and recorded by multiple different artists. Like, so it's probably if you have like a major hit by like any sort of like Motown superstar, the odds are there's a recorded version of that song somewhere else by another Motown singer, and it's like, oh, this one's better. We're gonna push this one. So
Yeah,
a lot of the
totally.
time, like songs would be like written by like one singer, but then given to like another singer.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like so many like contrasting like voices on the same track, and it's really interesting to see their interpretation of like of a similar like piece of like written work.
And to show even as well, like how certain things I say kind of contradict themselves. Lots of those songs are covers of songs that already existed. They're not new songs. Some of those are they're not the original person who sung it. Like, it's just that happened all the time with Motown. Like, so it's fascinating because songs I heard growing up feel like they never came from that they originated there, and they didn't, right? Which is to say, that whole idea I came up with, the whole idea when I was talking about like covers and stuff. Understand that like it's not. I'm not making a blanket statement even about cover songs, because some people do a cover of a song and it is amazing, because at a certain level a song isn't oh god, yeah, we are getting too artsy now. A song isn't should a song ever be owned by anyone? Like, can't, like, it's a complicated notion. Like, is a song ever owned? Like, when I sing it, like, is it owned by someone when I'm singing it? But the idea is that the point is that like the all of the things that come into making a song can have such deep impact and power, and more than pleasure, it can be enlightening for people. And I can't stress enough how much I believe in that. And how sometimes it's not even the case of, I literally sing a man to myself when I'm feeling really shit at work. It's like it was the way I coped with being at work on occasion, is I would sing that song to the point that, like, I get the cadence, like the length of the song is probably correct, and in my head I'm like imagining the bit, like the long instrumental after she's, done like after she's done like the big bit at
Yeah,
the end,
yeah.
and there's a bit long instrumental and then she sings again, which all jazz, like proper, like great, like prime good jazz, like fucking amazing, that whole thing. And it's powerful, and I can hear that in the back of my fucking mind when I'm working, like after having sung my bit, I'm like just listening to that like I can just hear it, like it's going, and it changes me, and it helps give me so much perspective, feeling in a way that I can't get otherwise. And it's hard to make my brain do that. So it's so powerful, and people should appreciate it. People should appreciate that it does that for everyone, and why it does it for everyone is a fascinating thing,
Yeah, yeah.
but to
Like
understand like what everyone's getting from it, it's wonderful.
one of my favorite songs is Jimmy Ruffin, "What Becomes of the Broken Hearted," because we also shared a birthday. I think he died maybe 3, 4 years ago. Excellent song. It was. I don't know if who originally sang it first, but the Contours did a cover of it as well. I think other artists did a cover of it, but his one was like so good it propelled him to being like a mega star. Sadly, that was like his main, like his only really main song, but it's such a good song. Like the soul I get from that song is so powerful that whenever I listen to it post breakup, I instantly I crumble.
Mm.
Like I'm like a fucking sandcastle kicked by a kid named Billy. You know, it's game over. It's halas, finished. Like that's what this shit can do. We've gone really fucking full on artsy here. We're gonna be in fucking Shoreditch sipping a chai latte without understanding that it's TT. But yeah,
It's just I think it's so fundamental, and I think I think it's nice to at least just give it. I wanted to give it because I realized it recently, and because it's not someone there's something of an ode to the person I want to give, um, because I love it so much, and it just is remarkable to me that people can exist that do this, and it's powerful, and it makes me want to be able to sing. It makes me want to it makes me want to learn how to control my voice in that way. And I know I can't do it to a certain extent. It's just how it is. And I can't. No rendition I ever do of Cinnamon is like Nina Simone's Cinnamon as much as I try to make it. But in my head, it sounds right because I'm singing and her voice is in the back of my mind, like singing it with. And it's yeah. If
yeah,
you've not heard any of the songs we've mentioned, just go on a fucking binge and listen to everything that we've mentioned, and
yeah. Like
get
I'd
a
love
little
to do
bit of
like a
a
recommendation thing.
sense. Yeah, and not
I
all
love
my
to do like
songs are like these. Like to be
yeah,
clear,
like
we
I'd
if
love to do like recommendations and see how like wild we are both willing to get. Like when do I, for example, I unironically love like Dragostea Denti, which is the Numa Numa song for people who don't know. Numa Numa yeah, Numa 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 yeah.
yeah,
Um, I actually unironically love that song. It's a great song.
it's
Um,
fun. It is a very fun song.
but also like I listen to their other songs. Of course, it's in believe Romanian, or Moldovan, and like there's another song called like I think it's Printra Nori, and it's just like oh this is really cool. But also the song called Run Away by the Sunset Project I think it's called, and Olga I can't remember her name. You guys would know it more for being the epic sax guy song, where the guy's a saxophone on the Eurovision stage and he starts humping the sax. That song is a banger. like,
Yeah,
if you
it's
guys
good.
haven't seen it, if you haven't seen it, go have a look at Epic Sax Guy. And it starts off with it's so cold, okay? They came 18th in Eurovision with the best song there. No one's beating that song. Well, Eurovision is corrupt. Eurovision needs to be sent to the gulag. Eurovision needs to be done for war crimes, like we can talk about other people's war crimes, but as you can see, it's priority. And I legitimately think right now, if I were to tell to the UK government, hey, I know that there's a clear bad thing happening in another country, but Eurovision, they'll drop everything and go to Eurovision. They would, they will discuss the corruption in Eurovision rather than even look at themselves, what they're complicit in doing. They'll look at Eurovision. Why? Because they're all cunts.
I think we're done. I think we've done well
Yeah?
today. I think it's great.
With that being said, we're going to take 2 steps to the rear and get out of here. We're in the wind. See ya.
Love for you all.